I am Marc-Andre. If you don't know me, I'm the Ed Automation nerd. So my role consists of helping partners just like you guys create content for automations, scripts, things like that. I write a lot of the training courses that you see for RMM and Central alike. I really just try to help as much as I can to make you guys more efficient. That's all I do. I'm not sales, I'm not dev, I'm not marketing, and I'm not support, but I try to put all hats on to just help you guys out. And that is all the nerds doing that to be advocates for you guys. The usual resources, if you have not used the Success Center, or if you don't use it regularly, you may want to go and look at it. This is where you want to open your support cases if you have issues. But more importantly to me, you have the Enable forums where you can go and interact with us and your peers. You have the MSP Institute where you can go and watch previous recordings of boot camps, office hours, a ton of various training courses. And we also have the ideas page. This is the old school Logic Now ideas page where you're welcome to put any suggestions for enhancements. So definitely a great resource if you're interested. If you don't know what the office hours are, if it's your first one, well, first of all, welcome. But second of all, the office hours are a topical Q&A. They are made to help you guys engage with industry experts, being myself, Charles, and others. So the idea is to really give you guys a chance to ask people that use the platforms that have used it as MSPs, that are using it on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully get you guys help. The topic is obviously automation, but we're more than happy to go into any RMM questions, any patching questions, any efficiency monitoring, automation scripting, and so on. We also really want to focus on building an online community. The reason that we say that is that we want the community to get closer and closer together. We've seen a trend in the last few years where MSPs that used to be very defensive, very protective of their own IP, their own stuff, their own processes, they're more and more willing to share on social with us, with peers, about how stuff works. So we really want to leverage that momentum and help you guys share more and more. Obviously, we want you guys to grow your business. The more you grow your business, the more you're going to deploy endpoints and tools, and the more everybody is happy and make money. Just very indirectly, our growth, your growth is our growth. We're very organically linked that way. It's not a sales pitch, it's just the way that works, really. And also, it's a good place for us to try to get feedback on ideas and product suggestions. So these office hours are really all about you guys, all about giving back and help you guys learn from there. So yeah, that's really the purpose here. So having said that, there's a few resources that are available to you. I did mention the Success Center forums already, the Institute, but the big one that I want you guys to take notice is the cookbook. The cookbook is where we publish all of our scripts, automation, monitoring, things like that. It actually says 300, it's now over 500. So this is growing. We added about 24 just last month. I'll show you that in a minute. And we're going to keep adding more and more. The Nerds team is growing at a steady pace. And as it does, more and more people are contributing to it. More and more partners are sharing back with us. And as that happens, we're seeing more and more content created and added here. So the cookbook is really where you want to start when you want to automate something. Go there first, see is there something that does it already. We're trying to do a steady growth of at least 10 to 20 a month, and I'm going to keep sustaining that as long as I possibly can because we want to give you guys back something. So let's take a look at what's been new in the cookbook for the last month before we go through your questions. So if I look in the cookbook, all of these have been added in the last month. There's enabling file and print sharing into the firewall, removing ESET, locking the screen if the user is inactive. That's a very nice one from a security standpoint. Removing Edge in case you don't want to be using that. Some people prefer to remove it altogether. There's a script to remove it. Removing Sophos. So then a lot of Mac scripts. All of these are Mac driven. Installing webroot silently, purging DNS cache, listing the users on the Mac device, installing .NET, and so on and so on. So there's a ton of different scripts added in the last month. So definitely go there and take a look and see what makes sense for you. Download them, use them, they're yours. And then the final column, there's things like monitoring for competitive RMMs. This is pretty useful in a case where you may not know what's out there. We've seen actually bad actors use some other competitive platforms that they say like, oh, just install this agent for me, please, when they're on the phone with some with their I guess their mark. They use that to get access to the machine later to do some bad activities. So you can monitor to see is my end devices or my customers' end devices using a competitive platform. If they are, you can get an alert. You can go figure out is that normal or not, and adjust from there. And then obviously an updated template for Exchange. That's just for Central right now, so just you can disregard that. But threat locker deployment, that's a nice one. A partner of ours, Don Brown, submit that to us. So we added it to the cookbook. So you're welcome to go and grab that. So that's super nice. Let's jump through into the actual Q&A and let's see what you guys have in store for us today. First one, I have a quick question from Eli. He's talking about the cookbook, saying, is there a better way to find stuff in the cookbook? The search function is not very great. Okay, let's take a quick look at that. When you go into the cookbook, like that, if you don't know the link, I'll put it in the chat. There it is. And honestly, you should be able to search for more or less anything. Not too sure what you'd be looking for. Personally, what I typically do when I come here is I look for what's new. So if I come here every week, what I typically do, if I'm going to show that to a partner, I'll sort by date, descending, so the newer stuff at the top. If you're using RMM, I would say show me only RMM compatible stuff, and then this shows you everything that's new that is compatible with the RMM platform. And then you can search from there and say, well, I want to do a user stuff. So user, and boom, here's everything with the word user. When we create articles, we do try to put keywords. So if you go at the bottom here, you see the keywords here, Mac and users and stuff like that. We try to add keywords that when you search, it's easier to find. But if you have any suggestion on how we could improve that, let us know, Eli. We also put a few feature scripts that we rotate through from time to time. But I don't have a much better answer than that. It is intended to be fairly simple to use. I have not heard that much negative feedback other than people want it to work slightly differently once in a while, but seems like it's pretty steady. But either way, if you have any feedback for us, please let me know. Next question I have is from Jason. So Jason is asking to get an output. So he's trying to get a version of something, and he's going to the registry to get that. Actually, yeah, okay, let's do that. That's easy. So I'm going to go to the registry, and in the registry, what I need to do is going to go to your key. So HQ local machine, software, and Microsoft Office, click to run. Okay, so we're going to get the Microsoft, and where's Office? Come on, buddy. Office, click to run. What is the next one? Config, like the O, and then your thingy was platform. There it is. So you're looking for this. So if you want to know what this key is and you want to store it somewhere, honestly, the easiest, if I was to do this, let me show you. Copy paste this, go into automation, make a new policy. No, get Office, click to run per 64 versus 32, and then Office, whatever. Okay, so what I would do here, if I was doing that and I was you, what I would honestly do, there is a get registry value. There it is. Now the get registry values value, if I do this, local machine, and call it platform, this should simply output a string. Come on, there you go, x64. So now I have a string that I can use. It's quite literally that simple. So the one thing that I find a little tricky is I would start by checking if it exists first to avoid. So if you're running this on a machine that doesn't have that value for some reason, it will give you an error. So what I typically do is do a registry value exist first. So I'm gonna say local machine, this, and platform. This will return a yes or no, or a true false, really. Then I'm gonna do if and if else. So I can do an if else like that, or I can simply make a global variable, which would be the easiest. So g reg value, and then no value found, let's say. So the default will be that there's nothing there in case it does not exist. So what we then do, we'll say, okay, if registry exists, condition is equal to true. So if it does indeed exist, then get it, then save it. Global variable. There you go. And then take that, okay, save it from our value. So So if I was to run this now, and I'll make an output so that it's easier to see. So out value for Office 64 versus 32, link to my global variable. Okay, I know I'm going quick over this, guys. I'm going to put this in the cookbook. You'll be welcome to go grab it. But basically what I'm doing is super easy. I'm basically saying, okay, go pre-value this to no value found, just in case we don't find it. Then we say, does that registry exist? Which it does. And if it does, get the new value, set it into the variable, and output that. Now, if you wanted to use this into a run script, you would do run script, pass that. If you needed it for some other purpose, you would just do whatever you needed. But this, if I run this now, let's take a look at what the output is. It says here the value does exist, which we would expect. Then we're saying if it does exist, which it does, get the value, which is x64. And now we're saying take that no value found and change it to x64. So when I output it, it says it's found, woohoo, and now we're good. So essentially, this is what you asked for, Jason. I know you gave me the PowerShell and I'm giving it to you in an AMP format. It just kind of makes more sense that way. You could do it in PowerShell pretty easily. Yeah, okay, so you would have an if else after that, so that would be base. Yeah, so essentially based on that, now you would do an if else. If it's equal to x, y, or z, then do something. But in PowerShell, you could do the same thing. You would basically just you would have to change the command a little bit. Your command is slightly wrong, but it should work. But I think this would be the ideal way. So what I'm going to do is save this so that I have a copy somewhere for you. Scripts, amps. There you go. I'll save that. I'll upload it to Cookbook, so you'll be able to grab it there. If you don't want to wait, just send me an email, and I will gladly take a look at it for you, and we'll use that. Next question, it says from Tobias, it says, do the macOS scripts run as is, or are there prerequisite like PowerShell? So to run scripts for macOS in RMM, you would need the scripts to be in a supported format. So if you're going to run Python script, you should have Python, whatever version of the script you're running. Same thing for Shell. Shell should be there by default. You should again run that. So you don't need anything very specific. It does not support PowerShell on macOS yet. PowerShell Core or PowerShell 7 now is supported on macOS, but we have not done the work on our side to support it. We are working on it to include Automation Manager, but that is going to be more of a mid to long-term project. So at the moment, that would be that. Next question I have here from Isaac is, we have a number of script checks to set up an endpoint that we have set up to return a pass or fail. We have not been able to get the RMM to create a ticket into MSP Manager based on the fail status. Could you point us to a resource or walk us through to do it? Honestly, it's super easy. What you need to do is when you're in here, you need to go into your alerts and you need to make sure under alert policy that you are alerting on script checks. I'm guessing that's what you're using. You need to make sure that this is set. If your script checks are not set for servers and for workstations like this, they won't be alerting to your PSA. And if you have the MSP Manager set up, you would have a different, under PSA here, you would have your notifications. You want, let me try to get into my other environment so we can see that. I should be able to quickly log out of it. To log in again, yes, please. And we're logging in. Okay, so now I'm in my SC demo. I believe that one is linked to MSP Manager. So we're gonna use a different demo environment for this purpose. So if I go to PSA, configure, you wanna basically make sure that your configuration of tickets is set. But honestly, it should be by default. If the issue auto solves itself, this will auto close it. So that would be something to be careful with in your case. But other than that, there's really not much more to it. I just wanted to see if you guys haven't seen it before. That is some of the setup here for ticket creation. And when you set up the integration, you have the option to say don't send emails anymore if that's what you want. So it would remove the email and only send a PSA. So that is what you want, but it still uses the alert policy, so you need to make sure you configure this properly. So definitely do keep that in mind. So yeah, good to know there. I'm gonna log back out to my other one because I don't like this one. But yeah, so that is that for your question. I'm assuming that was it. All right, so next question. Is there a way to add a task to all departments and sites at once, or do you have to do it for one department at a time? I'm assuming by department you mean a customer account or a company account. So basically like creating it for here versus here. So you can add a task for this whole site. You can also add tasks globally. So if I go to add a task and I say add task, and I pick, let's say, this guy, I can go next, and that will let me add a task for that one device, right? If I want to do it in bulk, I can right click on a customer or site and say add a task here, which will let me add it to the entire site. If I want to add it to the whole customer and all of its site, I would right click here and add it here. However, there is not a way to add a task for all customers at once. You can see here there's no option for that. The only option really would be to apply a template and apply it globally. And that is obviously not ideal because you have to do it per customer either way. So what I would typically recommend is create the task, add it to a template, and then apply the template to all the customers you want, which is still tedious. When you do a monitoring, you do have the option to add a check for all of it at once. So depending on what the task is, really, you could potentially do it by doing it here and picking everyone. So depending on what you're trying to do, if it could apply to a monitoring, you could do it that way and then do it. Otherwise, what I showed you is the only way. You can do it per customer, per site, or per device, and then you could apply it through a template. So I hope that helps a little bit. It's not the answer I would prefer to give. I would say, yeah, just do it for everything. And then central, there is a concept of rules and templates and task profiles that you can apply completely automated to devices that need it. But in RMM, they don't have that concept yet. So that would be something that, if that would be a big deal for you, you may want to look into it. The price point is about the same. It's just a bit of a different platform to learn. So if that is an option for you, that would be what I would recommend. But I know people don't like to be told that, so I'm just saying. Next question is there any warning or guidance on using the workstation daily maintenance script? I'm going to assume, Tobias, that you mean this. There is that one. This script is something that we have created. It was a year ago, year and a half, and I did that when I was working with two partners. It was Dean from Aztec and Brett from NetEffect, and we built this policy to basically add a ton of things that you can do into automation very easily. So that script, as far as guidance, the only thing to note is that you do have an input to decide if you want to disable RDP or not. Because I have people that say, I do need to keep RDP enabled. People RDP their machine through a VPN tool, which is totally fine. If that is your case, then yes, you would not set this to yes. Other than that, the policy itself, as long as you understand what it does, you can decide if it makes sense to you or not. So going through a list, enabling UAC should be a no-brainer. It should always be there. That's a good thing to do. Flushing DNS, not a bad idea either. Doesn't really hurt anything as far as I can tell. The next one is setting PowerShell to remote signed. If you're not familiar with that, when you run PowerShell, you can set the policy to unrestricted, remote signed, restricted, which is essentially no. There's a couple different options, and remote signed is the one that most experts will agree is where people should be. Remote signed means you can do remote PowerShell locally, which is fair. I mean, honestly, locally, if you're on the machine, you can always bypass that by using a bypass flag and bypass the execution policy. So realistically, locally, it makes no difference if you use restricted or remote signed. But remote signed allows you to run signed code with a trusted signed certificate remotely. But it has to be a trusted remote cert, which is a very big important limitation. So just something to keep in mind there. Then if that one makes sense to you, if any of those, by the way, doesn't make sense to you, just right click on it, say delete, and remove that component. Not a big deal. Then we disable RDP if that is what you want to do. That is a component for that. It's a lot of stuff. Then if you, again, don't need it, you can just set it to no or delete that. Then this one checks and disables auto run. Honestly, I cannot think of one scenario in which a auto run on a workstation should be turned on as far as a USB drive. We've seen cases where MSPs have done the test of just dumping thumb drives on the street with a little malware, very simple malware would call home to a place of his choice. And the amount of people that put them in their computer and that auto run on and that ran is just astonishing. So that should just be turned off, and that's good. Now, this is not to say all USB are safe. We've also seen USB thumb drives that people leave out that are basically acting like a keyboard or mouse and will actually run keyboard presses and things against the machine, and that is horrible. So if you don't know where that USB is, I don't think you should be putting it into a machine, even if that is disabled. So disabling auto run is not a safe, like basically a blank check to do whatever you want. So just be mindful of that. Then the next one we do is disable sleep and hibernation. Those, as far as guidance, personally, I think is a best practice. If your laptop is plugged in and you're trying to do patches, yeah, Charles, that the rubber ducky attack. But disabling sleep and hibernation, I think, is a good practice because it's hard to patch devices at night. A lot of people are like, oh, we do patches at 6 o'clock. Okay, what if the guy finished working at 4 o'clock and closed his laptop, or just let it lock and it went to sleep by itself, right? A lot of people are like, oh, don't put your machine to sleep, just let them on. But they let them on, they lock their machines up, and then it goes to sleep. So yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. Then the next one, running Windows Update service, it tends to stop by itself, which is not usually a big deal, but I personally prefer to turn it back on. Then enabling smart screen. Smart screen, that's super annoying. I don't know that EXE thing. Should you be using it? Little prompt. Personally, I like to have that. A lot of users hate it because it's annoying, but I think it should be there, in my opinion. Then disabling fast start or quick boot or fast boot, whatever Microsoft calls it now. I hate that thing so much. I don't like this. I don't see many people liking it. It is a great idea on paper, but it causes a lot of issues. It was great when everybody had mechanical drives, but a lot of people are switching to SSD. This is making it very difficult because you don't reboot the machine fully by using quick boot. And what ends up happening is that the machine will be in a kind of in-between state. So when you reboot, it's not like a full reboot, and then you still have complexity with the machine. So disabling this tend to help with some things. Then deleting temp files, just like into the app data temp folder, little couple of things like that. Just a good practice, in my opinion. Then starting Windows time, if it's not started. Windows time should really always be running, but for some reason it tends to stop on some machines, so we start it. Then we set the time server to we just reset the time. Normally this will run on anything local. Some people say they have issues if it's on a domain or not. You can modify that command to your heart's content, but typically that one just works as is. So it's a very long policy. It does a ton of stuff. Again, modify it to your needs. I've had a lot of people do it in the past, and not a huge deal, but it is something definitely to review before use. Anything you grab, whether it's from the cookbook, the internet, anywhere, you should take the time, scratch your head, and go like, should I be using this? And if the answer is yes, then yeah, go for it, use it. But always take a look at it, a cursory glance, even though it might come from us. And that's a very good question to ask, I think. So good. Next question from Dwayne. I created a script check and wanted to run an automation task on fail and add it to multiple devices. There's no checkbox to add a task on fail from the dialog box to add to the check on multiple devices. I opened the ticket and I was told this is not supported and they would update the documentation. Okay, good. So if I'm here and I go add a task like this, go next. So what you're saying is, oh, whatever. We're not gonna do it. I can do uncheck failure here, but you have to do it at the customer level. So Dwayne, that would be what I would recommend. So you would do the check first, right? So you would add the check to the machine. So you would go into, like we were before, come here, add check 24/7, pick your script check that you build and apply that to everyone, first step. Then you would add that. The alternative is to use templates and make a template and then apply the template in bulk like this here. And then the template can apply both the monitoring and the self-healing at once. So if we take a second to walk through this, because I don't think everybody is super familiar with that, what I typically recommend is we'll say manage templates, add a template. Let's say it's for servers in this case, and then call it monitor and self-heal something, whatever. Then I'm gonna say add a script check, and that will be a, I don't know, doesn't matter, test. And when I do that, I just leave all the defaults, who cares, and then add a automated task and say the task I want to do is, I don't know, empty recycle bin, whatever. And I want to do that whenever that guy has failed. So I'm going to come here. Personally, in the description here, I would say self-heal on script check test going fail, just so that I know what it is when it runs. Then do it uncheck failure, and then I'm going to say script check, and I'm going to pick my test. There it is, and say next, and then finish. Now that I did that, this template now contains the monitoring and that. Say okay, and then that template now will add the monitoring and the self-healing. So if I right click on this customer and I say apply a template, and I pick the one I just did, monitoring and self-healing something, whatever, and do okay, this will add the monitoring and the self-healing to all the devices for that customer that are the right type. So that would be the way to do that. So yeah, when you add, so yeah, so to your point, okay, so that would do what you're asking to do. So you can do it from here and add a task in bulk, or you can do it with a template and do it in bulk. All right, so that answers the question. Now, to your question, when I do add a task from this menu, you're right, we do not have the button to do multiple device. That was not there. That's only there for checks. So that is a design thing that's been there like that for as far as I can remember. But we do the task the way I showed you doing it here. That is the way that was intended. So yeah, that would be the answer for that one. Hopefully it kind of clarifies. I know it's not ideal, but at least it's something in my opinion, and that's better than nothing. Next question I have is, what would you recommend to secure a workstation? I was working on something recently. I should have it handy. There you go. A bunch of little things that are actually in this policy, to be honest. I recommend enabling UAC, disabling RDP, forcing a strong password, enabling smart screen, setting PowerShell, disabling fast start. All these little things, actually most of them are in this policy, so that's kind of a little silly. But they would be there. I actually showed recently, if you go into the scripts, this is going to be in the cookbook soon. I just built that. I think it was this morning for something else. Basically, this one checks, is UAC enabled, that if it's not failed. So you can actually monitor if the end user is disabling UAC. And then you could, as a self-healing, turn it back on. You could do it through a task separately and turn it back on, whichever way. But I always like personally to do a monitoring and a self-healing separately, and then use a template to deploy them because of a few reasons. One, from a visibility standpoint, you know that it's proactive and it does something because it's two different tasks. Two, from a monitoring standpoint, if it stays failed, you can actually, in your configuration, which is kind of nice, you can see under settings, and that would be under alerts and then policies. You have the option to say a script check only notify me after 2 failures. So the script check would fail, the self-healing runs, then the check runs again. If it didn't fix itself, then send me an alert, right? So for a lot of people, this makes a whole lot of sense, will reduce a lot of the noise. We mentioned that in the RMM optimization bootcamp this morning. Noise is a big issue for a lot of people. So by setting it this way, this will reduce a lot of the noise you will see, and hopefully will help with maintaining the environment a little bit more efficiently. Obviously, other things that we can do that I always recommend is, removing torrent apps and removing bloatware. There is a policy that we're working on to remove a lot of the basic bloatware. It's going to be in the cookbook soon. So it removes a lot of the basic default Windows stuff and like some of the stuff that third parties install. So all of those from a security posture really, really help. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Next question, I only have one left right now, is hey, we are a shop that does a lot of monitoring with laptops and handle a lot of laptops, and we've had issues with a lot of older machines where the batteries die fairly often. Do you understand? Do you know have any monitoring that you can share to monitor if those batteries are nearing end of life. Actually, as luck would have it, yes, I think I built that. There you go. And that's one. So battery capacity monitoring, that's in the cookbook. What that policy does, if I open it up and show it to you, where is it? Battery. So when we build this, this is the script. It's a little long, it's a little boring, but who cares? When you run this, it will ask you what is the capacity you want to have left on that battery. Typically, when a battery runs lower than like 65, 70%, it's usually the point where there's a diminishing return on the laptop, and that's the point where you need to replace it. If I run this, there you go. This policy will output a lot of different data points. The battery serial number, the capacity right now is at 98%, and that is done by looking at the design of the battery is rated for 90,000 milliwatt hour, or yeah, 90 watt hours. Yeah, that makes more sense. And right now, the last time it charged to full, it was only at an 88. So there's about a 2% drop. My laptop is about 5 months old, so I guess that makes sense. And there's one battery found, duh, and here's the information. What it then does is that the policy goes through and says, is that percentage, 98%, less than the capacity that you set as a threshold? If it is, go failed. So that is a monitoring you can apply to all your devices. And by applying it to all your devices, you then have the ability to know if any device is having battery life issue. And that happens on fairly recent laptops too. It's not as common, obviously, but it does happen. I've seen it happen. So it's kind of nice to have a way to be able to monitor that and get an alert if indeed that is a problem. So definitely something that you're going to want to take into account as you take a look. So yeah, good policy. It's in the cookbook. Grab it. It's yours. That's nice. Now, if you add it to a machine, it would show just like any other script check. Then you'll get whatever, blah, 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 battery life is okay, something. Or it's going to go failed, and then you get an alert, and then you know something's wrong, which is nice too. Next question I have says, it's Rich. He says, if I'm using the latest automation manager, do I need to make sure that my workstations and lab servers and whatever else, I guess, would be updated to the latest agent to make use of those scripts? Yes, you would. So what we've introduced in Automation Manager recently is a minimum policy version. So if you see here, this one, even though I might save it on the latest 2.19 designer, it only needs 2.16. And the way it does that is that the policy is smart enough to know that none of these objects have been modified or added since 2.16. That is the most recent one. So even though I'm on 2.19, this will work on 2.16. But if you use a newer object or something that's been updated, the policy version will change to 2.19, which is a current version. And what it does is that when you run the policy, you'll get an error saying execution failed, blah, 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 script, it will be script runner version not compatible. And then you need to update. I will admit, we have done a mistake recently. The dev team or the rollout team, whichever one, has done a minor mistake where they have released Automation Manager 2.19. So if you download this right now, it's 2.19. You can see here at the bottom. 2.19, they have released it before they have pushed the agent that supports it. So some people have updated to 2.19, they have built policies on 2.19, and then the policies do not work on their end central yet. I am very sorry for that. This is not ideal. This should be remediated within the next couple of days as the rollout goes region by region. And if you updated the latest version of your agent, or at least the RC, whichever one, you should be in good shape and being able to do it within the next few days. Once again, I am terribly sorry. This is an oversight. It's a mistake on the rollout team or the dev team, whichever one pushed the button. But that was done. And yes, sorry, that's an RMM thing, not in central. Sorry, Jason. Thank you for that. Next question I have. Hey, Mark, I'm trying to get a Windows build number, but I don't see this listed. How can I get that information out of the platform? Honestly, there's a registry for it. There's also a policy that we have, what is it called? Get Windows version or something? Also, if you've not seen, we do have a Windows 11 compatibility checker, which is super nice. So it's in the cookbook. You should also grab that, by the way, if you have not done so. But what is it called? Where is it? Windows 10 version. I think that should do it. that it? No, that's 2009. That doesn't sound right. Shoot, there's another registry key now. Hold on, let me grab it real quick. Yeah, it is under current version, but it's display version. So if I run this now, that's better. 21H1. Okay, good. So I am on 21H1. I'm going to save that. This one will basically capture your Windows version 21H1. So that is something that you can use if you want. That's nice though. Thank you. All right. Next question. We're going, you guys are drip feeding me questions one at a time. It's kind of hilarious, but I have one more from Jason. He's saying, is there a nuclear option for a lost or stolen laptop or workstation? I don't. I've been asked that a few times. I know there's third-party tools that you can run to more or less just physically kill the device, to wipe the hard drive, to do all kinds of stuff, to factory reset it, really. There's different ways to do this. I am not aware of one personally. I do not support one either. It is something I've been asked to look at a few times in the past, and we never really went anywhere with it for a variety of reasons. But I don't. Shoot. I know there's a couple ways you could script something to more or less wipe the device, but I don't happen to have that. Yeah, because I know there's a couple scripts that exist. I'm trying to see if I can quickly find one, but yeah, I don't have one handy. There is one that will invoke the remote wipe. I would actually have to try that then. Okay, I just found a script that says it's gonna do exactly that. It basically does a full wipe back to factory settings. So Windows will just wipe itself, but it doesn't do that. So the reason why you want to do a nuclear full wipe, first of all, if you use BitLocker, not as much of an issue. The user can't log in with his user, the machine is not decrypted, it doesn't run, done. If he takes the hard drive out somewhere else, it's not going to work because the TPM chip that will store the encryption key is not there, or they won't have the encryption key. That's not a big deal. The reason why you would usually do that is to basically wipe the machine to a point where they cannot restore anything, and that would usually be if BitLocker is not turned on. Now, even if you do a remote wipe of Windows, the files are deleted, but they're still accessible by Restoral tool, so that wouldn't work. So I hate this, but I don't have a good answer. So I'd kind of probably shy away from that one. But if you guys can think of any tool that says, you know what, this does it well, I would be more than happy to build this into a usable script and policy for you guys, and that would hopefully help. So if you guys want to do that, that is definitely something that I can look at for you. I just don't have a good answer right this second, but thanks for that.